Benedict Spence is still with me. Benedict, before we go to our next guest, how do you think the Prime Minister did on his trip to China? Do you think we got lots out of it, and do you think we've really polished our image on the world stage?
He did tremendously well. Comrade Leader Starmer went there and boldly set out his vision for the future of socialism across the world, and the Chinese were very receptive of him because they respect him as a great leader of socialist workers.
And pig iron production is up 8,000% this year.
Now we're going to play the anthem and we're all going to stand and salute, and, you know, I'm doing my best here, but no, come on, it wasn't even particularly good for PR purposes. He went, there's a couple of photographs of him looking very short next to a lot of Chinese soldiers who were inexplicably very tall.
In the country.
They went straight to Manchuria and went, right, which are the tallest amongst you, who are basically Russians here?
They literally do that stuff.
Yeah. They do, and we don't see it coming, and he just looks tiny. And there were people who took photographs with him at a restaurant, and that's about it.
Well done. I mean, he went to Japan to make it look like he was busy and it was all worldwide, but he got back at the weekend, and now he's faced, well, exactly the same woes he had before he left over this Gorton by-election and talk of a leadership challenge as well. Let's talk about all of this now with Labour councillor and commentator Sebastian Salek. Good afternoon to you, Sebastian.
Good afternoon. How are you, Julia?
Very well indeed. Always well. I mean, I'm still like, you know, I'm delighted that January's finally over, as the Prime Minister no doubt is as well. But February's looking pretty grim too. It's still looking pretty grim for the Prime Minister. I mean, look, this was a disastrous PR-wise trip to China. He got pretty much nothing in return. Most of the investment he was talking about was British firms investing in China, for goodness sake. And he's come back, and the problems are just as bad as they were before he went away.
Yeah, look, I think calling that trip a humiliation, as you did before the break, going a little bit far, if I'm completely honest. We got a deal on whiskey, we got a deal on sanctions, we got a deal on visas, we got AstraZeneca investing into China. Pretty good for a day.
Was that worth giving away the embassy?
Really.
Was that worth giving away the embassy? By the way, those MPs who were sanctioned, they can't go to China anyway because it still wouldn't be safe for them. You could already get China. The people who are going to get visas would have been able to get one. Won't need visas now. Would have been able to got one anyway. I mean, the other stuff. I mean, this is a nonsense.
What's a nonsense? Sorry.
Which is, I mean, a tariff deal on whiskey. I mean, yes, that's great for those whiskey producers, but the Prime Minister took time. He missed a PMQs. He dashed off to be on the other side of the world for half the week, and that's what he got. He was humiliated. He didn't even get a private tour of the Forbidden City, for God's sake.
Look, Julia, I think if you want to criticise this government, there are other avenues I would go down. That was a very successful visit. He's doing exactly what Prime Ministers should be doing, which is going out there and striking deals with other countries. Sadly, it's the opposite of what the previous government did, which was close down our trading relationships with our nearest neighbours.
We didn't close. No, we didn't. No, we didn't. We still. Most of our trade is still with the EU. When did we close it down?
Less than before Brexit, though, Julia. And that's
because everyone's trading less because those countries are so poor now.
Sorry, which countries are poor?
Oh, well, I mean, Germany was booming. Germany's no longer booming, but that's because they Brexited. Oh no, they're still in the EU.
Well, no, Poland is booming, Greece is booming. You're seeing a lot of growth across the EU.
I hate to tell you, those are not the key economies of the EU.
No, they're not, but they're the emerging ones. So it's important to have relationships with those.
So you accept that Germany and France, the other big economies, aren't booming? You accept that?
Oh, of course, you can read GDP numbers just as
but that's weird because your lot are constantly telling us that the reason we're not doing well is because we left the EU. Those countries are still the leading power players in the EU. They haven't left, and yet they're doing badly. How does that make sense?
Well, of course it makes sense. All economies are cyclical. Sometimes they'll be doing well and sometimes they'll be doing badly.
Oh, so ours has got nothing to do with
causation.
Brexit.
You want to ask yourself, why are economies doing badly? And if you cut yourself off from the rest of your continent economically, of course you're going to say...
We're not cut off. We're still trading
Julia, as we've said, we've covered the fact that trade has fallen between the UK
and why has trade... OK, small point that we had this lockdown thingamajig. Small point that we then had Ukraine war and we had huge increase in prices, which basically dulled everyone's economies. And the fact that countries like Germany are doing really bad economically, so they're not buying as much of our stuff.
So just to be perfectly clear here, are you saying that Brexit has had no negative impact economically whatsoever?
I don't think there's any way of knowing. No, I don't think. I think given that we Brexited in the middle of a lockdown, I'm not sure it's possible to tell which bits. There are plenty of benefits. Any negativity we've had as a result of governments, both Tory and Labour, mostly Tory, not actually trying to give us a proper Brexit and breaking free, deregulating and improving a lot, as opposed to what Keir Starmer wants to do, which is tie us to all the EU regulations, but without having a say on what those regulations are, which is the worst of both worlds.
So that's an interesting position, and it might have been valid in 2020 before we really could assess the damage. But as most economists will tell you, you can see what's bounced back after COVID. A lot of things have bounced back after COVID, and many things haven't. And so the dust is settling now, and you can make a real assessment of the damage that Brexit has done to the UK economy.
Okay,
and that's really unfair on everybody who lives here and anybody who wants to see growth in the country.
Okay, yeah, that if you think that's the problem why we're not doing well in our economy, good luck with that. Take us back. Have a referendum. We won't vote to go back in, but if we did, I can assure you it would make zero difference to our economy. Can I just bring you something that you talk about bounce back? Someone who kept bouncing back over the years has always been Lord Mandelson over the years. As my colleague Benedict Spencer just pointed out, he's actually been appointed by and basically fired by 43% of all Labour Prime Ministers ever, 3 out of the 7. But he is out of a job. He's out of a job as of last year as our man in Washington. He then just yesterday resigned from Labour Party membership. He still has a peerage, of course, so he doesn't sit in the House of Lords. Keir Starmer's just issued a statement saying he believes Lord Mandelson should not be a member of the House of Lords, and he's asked the Cabinet Secretary to urgently review all available information on contact between the former minister and Jeffrey Epstein. This is a statement issued by Downing Street on Keir Starmer's behalf. We've had Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, saying that there needs to be a full investigation. This ultimately does come back to the Prime Minister and his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney's judgment, does it not? Appointing a man who'd left 2 jobs previously because he was caught lying, who had a close friendship, a man he called his best pal, with a man who was well known at this point to be a paedophile and had a criminal conviction for a lot of that time for soliciting a 14-year-old for prostitution. Doesn't this tell us that Keir Starmer and indeed his Chief of Staff have terrible judgment?
I think what it tells us is that Peter Mandelson wasn't completely honest with the Prime Minister and with anybody else.
Shouldn't that have been priced in?
Process when he was trying to become the ambassador.
Shouldn't that have been priced in? He was a proven liar already. Shouldn't that have been priced in? That he's not going to tell us the truth. Aren't they supposed to do due diligence?
Julia, because if you start to do that with politicians, you don't end up with many left. I mean, you could make the same argument for Boris Johnson, who had a furnished record of lying before he even became an MP, and he rose to the very top. Should we not have I've
always had question marks, but there's a difference between he lied to his wife about his mistress and he lied to the Prime Minister about and lied to his mortgage company about a loan for his house.
Boris Johnson lied to the Queen.
What did he lie to the Queen about? Just help my memory.
It was around proroguing Parliament. It was the advice that he was given, which is a pretty serious offence.
Well, yeah, but then, the Labour Party and Keir Starmer lied to the public about accepting the results of a referendum, so swings and roundabouts and everyone. I don't think Prime Ministers, I don't think Ministers, I don't think MPs should lie to the public. But when they get caught, we're allowed to hold that against them. If someone keeps lying and keeps having to resign from jobs because they've lied, was it a good idea to appoint them to a job where they were representing us as the most senior diplomat in the world?
Well, with the benefit of hindsight, I can say it was a bad decision, and the Prime Minister agree with me.
Didn't need hindsight.
Well, it did, because he wasn't, as you will know, entirely honest about his extent of his relationship with Epstein at the time of the vetting. If he had been, I'm incredibly confident he would never have been appointed.
Basic checks with MI5 would have established that this man, who'd been a European Commissioner, who'd been a government minister, who had lots of extensive ties with everybody, there's no sodding way that the security services didn't know who he was friends with and where he was spending time.
So are you suggesting there's been some kind of cover-up within MI5?
No, I'm pretty sure. I would be very surprised if Downing Street wasn't aware of everything and they appointed him anyway. That's what I think happened.
Okay, well...
Of course, there is no way that someone is appointed to that job without being security vetted. You have to be security vetted to get a pass for the House of Commons, for goodness sake. He was security vetted. There's no way that... I mean, and we've had some question marks about that when he, last year and the year before, about whether or not, how he would have passed that vetting.
Yeah, I mean, look, we know as a matter of public record that he has said that he wasn't entirely honest. with those who were vetting him. We can make all sorts of guesses about what happened and develop our own theories, but the reality is that that whole process is a complete black box, and we will never know for sure.
Yeah, I just think when someone's already been sacked twice for lying, I think you could perhaps not be quite so trusting. At the end of the day, he
Well, on
seems
that
to...
basis,
Yeah.
let me ask you about Nadine Zahawi then, because he's been reappointed now. He's walked into reform.
Well, he's not been reappointed as a minister. No, I think,
No,
and
but should he be allowed
I was
to defect?
absolutely of the
Should he
view that
be
he
welcomed
should have been
with
sacked
open
when he was a
arms?
government minister, 100%.
But has he then forfeited his right to continue a public life?
I'm not, well, put it this way, I'm not sure given his track record, and I like him personally, I'm not sure that I would take what he says as written. I would want to see proof, because you do forfeit your right to be treated as honest when you have not been honest previously. Let me ask you.
What about Suella Braverman then? Because she's also had to resign a couple of times because of dishonesty, and she's also...
Yeah, you say that's a those are very different issues.
I don't think they are.
I think they are.
I do. They've been covering things up. One was involving personal tax affairs. One was involving leaks within the Home Office.
I think those were very different.
Isn't Reform making a big mistake by taking these people on board who are, by your definition, incredibly tarnished politicians? I
don't think they're tarnished in the same way.
Really?
I really don't. No, I don't think they're, because I don't think those are of equal morality.
So you don't think lying and dodging tax, tens of millions of tax? No,
Zahawi. No. I called for him to be sacked when that emerged. Got no
sure,
question
but now
about
he's
that.
gone on to reform, and your general argument
he hasn't been appointed. He hasn't been appointed to a government.
Must then disappear from public life. Or have I misunderstood you?
He hasn't been appointed to a government role.
No, but
and there's no question about him being appointed to a government role.
Reform. There was a massive press conference to welcome him. He shook hands with Nigel Farage.
But he hasn't been appointed to a government role. That's a completely... a government role is a completely different thing.
But don't you think it's a political misstep for...
It may well be. It may well be, but that's not the same as being appointed to a government role where your job is to keep state secrets, when you're a proven liar, when you're a diplomat.
Understood. If Nadine Zahawi is ever appointed a cabinet member or a shadow...
I'm not of the view that people who resign in those circumstances or sacked in those circumstances should be able to come back. I think at that point you have to say public life is no longer for me.
Then will you denounce it then if either of them ever entered the shadow cabinet?
Hold me to it. I'm going to have to leave this now, but only because of time. I could keep doing this for another 20 minutes. And there's loads more I want to talk to you about, but I've got another guest waiting on the line. I'm going to have to leave it, but come back again soon. Sebastian Salek, Labour councillor and commentator. Gave all credit to him. Gave as good as he got.